There are many Batman Arkham characters that you've never seen before. Over the past number of weeks, I've been researching to find the most obscure villains in the Batman Arkham universe to find out their origins and what their current schemes are. Some of these characters featured heavily in the comics, and some of these characters have been done dirty by that game we do not speak of. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe, and let's get started. Killer Moth is a character that appeared very early on in Batman's comic book history, starting off in February 1951 in Batman Volume 1, Issue 63. His first involvement in the Arkham timeline is all the way back between the time of Arkham Origins and Arkham Shadow in the comic book Batgirl Begins, where the story follows Barbara Gordon on her first day of donning the cape and cowl. Jim Gordon, probably on better terms with Batman since the events of Arkham Origins, has been ordered by the mayor to hold some sort of meeting with the press at the GCPD to prove that Batman is no myth and just some crazy person. In order to prove this, the mayor has some experts recreate the Batsuit and some of Batman's gadgets such as the grapnel gun in order to show how Batman's arsenal works. Later on in the day, in the GCPD, Harvey Bullock first steps up onto the stage to do a speech on his experience with Batman, calling him a nutjob with access to discount sporting store goods and way too much free time. But as Bullock attempts to reveal the suit to the press, the podium that Bullock is standing at explodes, with Commissioner Gordon being lifted into the air by some goo. It is revealed that Killer Moth is behind the attack, and the reasoning is that he believes the GCPD themselves are working with Batman and are also funding him so that Batman can break the law without repercussions. While Killer Moth is bragging to the crowd that he's about to kill the Commissioner, Barbara crouches down and sneaks up to the makeshift Bat costume and suits up. Barbara uses the grapnel gun attached to her wrist in order to knock Killer Moth's gun out of his hand. Seeing Barbara as little threat, Killer Moth orders his henchmen, known as the Moth Dorks, to kill her. Barbara puts up a good fight by kicking one in the face and using the grapnel gun again to slam the other Moth Dork into a steel beam. Although Barbara was able to defeat them, she seems to be too late. Killer Moth lifts Gordon into the air, and when Barbara leaps to grab him, her hook pulls her back as it was attached to the pillar still. Killer Moth, seemingly trying to calm himself down after seeing this bat creature take out his men, reminds himself that she is only a girl and not this myth. He reminds himself that Batman is only a man, but while Killer Moth is distracted, Batman, who has snuck up on him, tells Killer Moth that he's wrong and takes him down. We can assume that this is in fact canon to the Arkham timeline, as we see this event on the news clippings on a board in the GCPD, but apart from that, there's not much we can find on him. Fast forward a good bit into the future to Arkham Asylum, where again little is mentioned of Killer Moth, but we do see his work. By heading to the Aviary in the Botanical Gardens, the same area where we take out the operator without being seen in order to save the Arkham workers. If you go to the spot where you saved the workers and look towards the ceiling of the room, you can see that there's a body stuck up there with the same goo that was used against Commissioner Gordon. This doesn't seem to be during the events of the game though, as we can see that the body is a skeleton, so it's been up there for a good while to the point that it's rotted. Killer Moth was likely in Arkham Asylum during the time of the riots, but probably escaped early on. Now we don't hear anything from Killer Moth for a good while, not even in the following game, Arkham City, but this is where it gets a little messy, as in the Red Hood story pack for Arkham Knight, we can hear what the thugs say about Killer Moth.
Where does this one come from? He the one who took down Killer Moth last month?
I say this messy as in the Suicide Squad Kill Arkham Asylum comic book run, Killer Moth is still alive but locked up in Arkham Asylum. I don't know if this is a retcon or maybe the thugs misheard, but I feel like Jason wouldn't be holding back when it comes to bigger villains, so for Jason to go after Killer Moth and not kill him is pretty surprising to me. Although apparently alive in this comic book, Killer Moth is having a pretty terrible time in Arkham Asylum, where we see in one snippet that the guards are beating him up while on the ground just for not keeping his cell tidy, and another snippet where Harley Quinn is witnessing Killer Moth Moth being waterboarded for not shutting up when the guards told him to. We get to see Killer Moth in his costume only for one shot, which makes me think that maybe the villains that were prevalent in the comics were planned to be playable characters such as Killer Croc, who apparently was one of the future DLC characters. It makes me wonder what Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League could have been if they continued their original plan, but the last mention of Killer Moth in the Arkham timeline is pretty much a throwaway line, where if the player tries to escape the mission, the explosive planted in their neck detonates, and sometimes Amanda Waller may say this piece of dialogue.
This is on me for expecting better. Colonel Flag, find me Killer Moth.
Killer Moth sadly hasn't properly featured at all during the Arkham games, which is a shame as his design that we saw in the Asylum bios and the Batgirl Begins comic is really cool in my opinion. I definitely feel if Rocksteady are working on a new Batman game, then it wouldn't be any harm adding Killer Moth into the game as a side mission. Maybe he could be robbing banks similar to Two-Face, but let me know how you would implement him. Deaver and Dumfrey Tweed, or better known as Tweedledum and Tweedledee, are characters that first made their appearance in Detective Comics issue 74 in April 1943. These are pretty low-level criminals that we first see referenced in Batman Arkham Asylum. It appears that they were playing on a seesaw just before the takeover occurred. Shortly after Joker took over and the riot started, Tweedledum and Tweedledee made a break for it and managed to escape, leaving their hats behind. We actually get our first look at them in the Batman Arkham City prequel comic issue 5, where we see both of them at a Tiger checkpoint trying to stay undercover by wearing caps and law-abiding citizen t-shirts, believing that would be enough to fool Hugo Strange and his men. We can even see Riddler himself is taking some sort of interest in the two, as we see them on the right side of his monitor. We don't really get much of them till we reach the prequel comic of Arkham Knight, where it doesn't really end well. In the comic book Arkham Knight issue 12, which follows the storyline Roadkill, this issue being part 2 of that storyline, where Tweedledee and Tweedledum are instructed by the Penguin to carry out a heist where using a chopper would intercept and rob a truck's goods. Tweedledee descends down from the chopper and hooks it securely. The chopper then lifts the goods into the air. While trying to escape though, Batman enters in his Batwing and glides down to the goods, attaching his own cable to the cargo in order to ruin the criminals' plans. While doing this though, Batman is attacked by their cousin, Tweedledee, a younger and much stronger version of them. After a pretty intense battle between Batman and Tweedledee, Batman sprays explosive gel on the cargo and detonates it. Batman dives inside and reveals it seems to be the Batmobile that was the cargo the whole time. As he bursts out of the container and manages to bring the car to a halt, Batman grapples up to the chopper, which Dee and Dum are piloting, where both of them are trying to put the blame on each other, saying it was him. I was trying to save you. Batman replies that he believes both of them and knocks them out. Batman ties the three of them together for the GCPD to collect and takes them to the Gotham Central Holding Facility, where only hours later a shadowy figure approaches them. Confused on what's going on, they call to each other, where it's revealed that the Arkham Knight is standing at the opposite side of the bars holding a shotgun, and without a word or hesitation, the Arkham Knight fires upon the three, and although they don't seem to be mentioned after this, it's safe to assume that the Arkham Knight assassinated all three. Now, how true this comic run is would be pretty difficult to tell due to Bane dying in the same comic storyline, but in the games we all know he goes to Santa Prisca, so I guess it's down to preference whether they live or die, but I personally consider this death of the Tweedle gang to be canon, unless we see them alive in a game, but let me know what your thoughts are. Humpty Dumpty is an English nursery rhyme that I'm sure you all know, but did you know that there's a Batman Arkham character named Humpty Dumpty that first appeared in Arkham Asylum Living Hell Volume 1 Issue 2, published back in 2003, and is surprisingly in the Arkham universe? We are first introduced to Humphrey Dumpler in the comic book Arkham Origins, which is a choose-your-own-adventure type comic, where the reader will be given multiple options, which could either be the canon route, or lead Batman to a dead end. Looking at the canon route for the sake of time, Humpty Dumpty meets up with a person who wants to hire him for work, who is Arnie Floss, a crooked cop who is a hatchet man for Commissioner Loeb. Arnie explains that what he would be doing would make the police grateful for him, and that would allow him to get a free pass to start up his own operation. Bruce, who is eavesdropping on them, is interrupted when a thug spots him and is confronted. Humpty wants to murder Bruce, but Bruce, who kept his cool, allowed Arnie to kill the tension, offering Bruce money, believing he is an ex-Marine who is now homeless. Bruce gets away scot-free, knowing a bit more information on their plan. Batman intercepts the capture attempt of Alexandra Dent, Harvey Dent's sister, and gets into a brawl with Humpty. It's a pretty difficult fight, with Humpty being naturally stronger than Batman, with Batman luckily using a smoke bomb in order to disorientate Humpty, lining him up for a takedown. Now, not much is known about Humpty after this comic, with later in the timeline, in the character bios of Asylum, we see that Humpty had killed his own grandmother, tearing her limbs apart, and attempted to reassemble her. After this, he was sent to Arkham Asylum, and what happened to him since is unknown. It's a shame that he completely disappeared after Asylum, as he definitely would have fit in for a great mini-boss fight, similar to Hammer or Sickle, so let me know how you would implement him. Batman's greatest enemy sadly never made a proper appearance in the Batman Arkham games, this being the Condiment King, who first made his appearance in 1992's Batman the Animated Series episode titled Make 'Em Laugh. Condiment King's involvement in the Arkham franchise is pretty limited. His first mention in the timeline is all the way back in Batman Arkham Shadow, where in the post-credit scene when Batman meets up with Dick Grayson in his apartment, Condiment King is written on the fridge. Now this is pretty pointless to us, but it's interesting that it did not appear in the game when we first visited the apartment, but appears the next time. I guess a little nod, but nothing too special. We don't get any real mention or appearance of him until you probably guessed it. Suicide Squad kill Arkham Asylum, where during a riot, Boomerang teams up with Mad Hatter, Hypnotic, Spellbinder, and Crazy Quilt. When running in the direction they feel as they exit, they pass Condiment King, who believes he should follow them in order to find a way out. When Boomerang asks what he's doing, Condiment King replies, "You looked like you knew where you were going, so following you guys was my best chance for survival." They enter this empty room where the doors lock, with them trapped inside. Amanda Waller appears on the big screen, informing them that there can only be one person to leave the room and that they need to fight to the death. Before Boomerang and Condiment King can even process the information, Mad Hatter, Hypnotic, Spellbinder, and Crazy Quilt use their mind control on them, making them hallucinate really crazy, nonsensical worlds. Boomerang hallucinates Flash, who starts beating Boomerang up. Flash repeatedly hits Boomerang until Boomerang manages to distance himself, which allows him to toss his boomerang and decapitate Flash, but as the boomerang rebounds back to him, it slices Condiment King's arm off. Condiment King falls to the ground, where we can presume he bleeds out, as Waller allows Boomerang to leave, as he is the last surviving member of the gang. Sadly, this is probably the end of Condiment King. It's hard to know if Condiment King will return, but I believe it to be doubtful, as he's a pretty niche character, and the chances of Rocksteady wanting to fit him into the Arkham games when he's a bit of a joke character seems pretty doubtful, unless they want to have him in a light-hearted side mission. But let me know what you think. Someone that I see is referenced multiple times during the Batman Arkham games is the Ventriloquist, whose puppet Scarface is in nearly every Batman Arkham game. Arnold Wesker, the first and most commonly known Ventriloquist, only made his proper appearance in Batman Arkham Shadow, where he has a pretty small role, but it's still really cool to finally see him in person. This seems to be a common trend for the Ventriloquist, as there is actually a second one that is referenced in the games, but still is yet to make an appearance. This Ventriloquist, named Agent Peyton Riley, who first appeared in Detective Comics issue 827 in March 2007, is the daughter of the Irish mob boss Sean Riley, who owns Riley's pub that we can find in Arkham Origins and Arkham Shadow. Sean even can be heard during the riots of Shadow defending his pub.
I built this place with my own 2 hands. I'm not letting some terrorist rip it to shreds. That's why I'm doing this. Our kids need to learn how to defend what's theirs. Go to my cousins until all this rat stuff blows over, alright?
During the events of Arkham City, if we listen to the radio chatter by the GCPD, we can hear that Arnold Wesker has taken a hostage.
Dispatch. Wesker is taken a hostage and is proceeding to shoot at other officers.
This is probably when Peyton Riley would take over as the ventriloquist, and if you consider Suicide Squad Kill Arkham Asylum canon, then we find out that Harley accidentally killed Arnold, while a lot of you don't consider that canon, so it's up to you what you think. Peyton Riley doesn't get mentioned at all in the games until the events of Arkham Knight, where we can find her gun in the evidence locker.
One Tommy gun, used by Peyton Riley, aka the ventriloquist. Or maybe the gun belongs to the puppet. I never really understood what's going on there.
How well she could be implemented into the actual games is a tough one to call, and probably why the first ventriloquist was never really involved in the games. Great White Shark is a character which was created a lot more recently than I expected, with his first appearance in the comic book Arkham Asylum Living Hell in 2003. It's only really 6 years before Arkham Asylum, the video game, released. It's not really specified when he became properly the Great White Shark, but it's safe to assume that it happened a few years before the events of Arkham Asylum, as in the bios, he appears to already be an established crime boss. All we definitely know is that an encounter with Mr. Freeze stripped him of his hair, nose, ears, and lips. He later filed his teeth in order to match the actual animal, the Great White Shark. Great White Shark is first mentioned in Batman Arkham Asylum, where we can find his teeth in the same room where we first encounter Scarecrow, where the body bags are. This is pretty commonly known, as you need to scan the teeth in order to solve a riddle and get access to Great White Shark's bios. We can assume he was in the asylum before Joker's takeover, but managed to escape. Not much is mentioned again for the next game, Arkham City, mainly just his building, which we can find, named W. White, which is Great White Shark's real name, Warren White, and we can assume he was taken to Arkham City and survived Protocol 10. We move on to Arkham Knight, where again he doesn't make a physical appearance, but we can find parts of him in the evidence room inside the GCPD.
A selection of body parts belonging to Warren White, aka the Great White Shark. White got himself sent to Arkham on an insanity plea. He lost a few things other than his mind while there. Made the new look work though, I gotta say.
In Suicide Squad Kill Arkham Asylum, the prequel comic, it starts as the criminals are escorted in. Zsasz threatens King Shark to the point that King Shark lashes out and rips his head off. During the riot in Arkham Asylum, Deadshot, Deathstroke, and Great White Shark team up in order to escape. Deadshot believes he heard that it was actually Great White Shark that killed Victor Zsasz a few weeks ago, although we know ourselves that he didn't actually. Warren agrees to this, although obviously fake, most likely in order to join their crew. During the escape, Deathstroke believes going through the front entrance is the best chance of getting out, but Deadshot rejects this idea and suggests the sewers. Deathstroke agrees with Deadshot's suggestion, but believes now he has no further use of either of them, so he shoots Great White Shark, killing him and injuring Deadshot. Let's see if Great White Shark will actually be dead. Will be hard to know. It most likely will be answered in a post-Suicide Squad game, but we probably will be waiting a good while before that. Be sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below who your favourite obscure villain was. That's all for now. My name is Fo, and Slán.